Welcome to our attendees.
Hello, everyone.
We still have a few people logging in, so we are going to give them a minute or two to get settled, and then we will get started. While we wait, we ask that you use the chat box to tell us your name and where you're from. Hi, Lisby from Krugersdorp. Hi, Leslie from Johannesburg, and welcome. Nicole from Durban, welcome. Ned from Velcom. Rita from Krugersdorp. Tanya, Gugu from Durban, hello. Hi, Bianca from Pretoria. Welcome, everybody. We're so happy to have you with us today. Okay, I think we are ready to go. My name is Abongile Shumani. We are delighted that you have joined us for today's webinar, which I will be co-hosting with my colleague, Jyotika Bimji. On 9 August 1956, about 20,000 women marched to the union buildings in Pretoria to protest against legislation aimed at tightening the apartheid government control over the movement of Black women in urban areas. They left petitions containing more than 100,000 signatures at Prime Minister J.G. Stradum's office door. They stood silently outside his door for 30 minutes. It is 64 years since this event has come to represent women's courage and strength in South Africa. Throughout the years, women continue to look for ways to make their voices heard and narrate their own stories. South Africa commemorates Women's Month in August, and we take this opportunity through this webinar titled Our Stories Matter, a dialogue with women in law to celebrate phenomenal women of South Africa. Today's dialogue is being hosted by LegalWise in collaboration with probono.org. Jyotika will now take us through a few housekeeping rules and introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Abongile. Today's webinar is scheduled until 2 o'clock and is being recorded. We will be sharing the link with you after the event is complete. All dialed-in participants will be muted and their video switched off for the duration of the event. The chat box will be open during the session, and you are most welcome to post your questions and comments via this functionality during the dialogue. Please ensure that you select all panelists and attendees so that your questions and comments are visible to all. Please note that there will be a very brief survey once the webinar ends, which we ask that you kindly complete. We are joined by our two lovely hosts, Siva Gengan and Teresa Yates. Siva Gengan is a Chief Executive Officer of LegalWise South Africa. She's a high-performance management professional with 25 years experience in the insurance sector. She's an attorney, conveyancer, notary public, and certified director. Teresa Yates is the National Director of probono.org. Previously, Teresa was a Deputy National Director of the Legal Resources Center and has not only legal training, but a background in human rights and development on the continent. Back to Abongile, who will now introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, Jyotika. Our guest speaker today is Candice Pillay, who is a director at Lawtons Africa. Candice began practice as an attorney in 1998 and has been a commercial litigator since. She commenced her career in personal injury litigation with motor vehicle accident claims, product liability, public liability, and medical negligence matters, and joined Lawtons Africa's insurance team in 2005, where she expanded her litigation skills in private security industry. In 2011, Candice took over the pro bono department and focused on human rights litigation. She has acted successfully in a number of cases relating to domestic violence, child access and custody, evictions, and land claims. Her most notable achievements have been to successfully interdict a State Department from removing over 3,000 informal traders from the inner city of Johannesburg and has been instrumental in developing a new policy for informal traders. In 2016, Candice identified the need in South Africa for entrepreneurial legal assistance by starting an enterprise development practice. Her role is primarily to provide legal support to SMMEs, startups, and entrepreneurs. Her work involves assistance with corporate governance as well as drafting and negotiating of contracts. Candice also offers a number of workshops on company law and legal compliance for SMMEs and entrepreneurs. We will now hand over to Siva and Teresa, who are going to start the dialogue. Over to you, Siva.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are so thrilled to have each and every one of you joining us today for the third in a four-part series of Our Stories Matter, a dialogue with women in law. I'm so honored to be sharing this space with Teresa Yates from probono.org as we engage in rich dialogue with women in law. Today, we extend a very warm welcome to Candice Pillay from Lawtons, Africa. Candice, we are so delighted to be spending the next while with you, and thank you for sharing the afternoon with us. How are you doing today, Candice?
Thanks, Siva. Hi, Teresa. I'm great. I want to just give a shout out to all the attendees and to LegalWise. There's such a huge support. I had a quick squiz at the attendee list, and I really, really want to shout out to the attorneys in private practice that are joining today. I really take my hats off to you. I'll tell you, it's hard being a female attorney in private practice, but everyone who actually has signed up and has joined, thanks so much. I'm very humbled that you want to spend an hour listening to me. So yeah, doing great today.
So looking forward to Candice. So you want to give us a little bit about your background and what has inspired you to get into practice, Candice? You want to share that with us, your story?
Sure. So Abangili gave away my age. I've been practicing for 21 years. I grew up in Durban, in a little township called Phoenix. And in the 1980s, there was a lot of unrest going on in our areas. We had the SA-NDF parked outside our schools. Those who in my age group will understand it was really tough being at school in the 1980s. And part of that experience just filled me up with this sense of justice or injustice, or understanding how limited we were in our freedoms. You know, when you grow up and as a child, you don't have a sense that you're not free. You know, you live in your community, you go, you do things, you play, you whatever. But when you grow up, you get a sense that maybe you weren't so free. And I think that sense of that I could do so much more by fighting for people's rights was just instilled in me at that time. And I had lots of good teachers that said, don't be limited, firstly, by your circumstances. We were very poor. Phoenix is a very poor community. And they really said, the star's the limit, you know, the sky's the limit. Do something different. So I was inspired to study law, or I was directed to study law, to say you don't have to be a teacher or a secretary. You could go, nothing wrong with being a teacher or secretary, but you could go and study law. And I think lots of young girls need to be told they could actually do more than the options available to them. And then I came to Wits University, left home, and joined this brave new world. And it was the best time in South Africa's history to be at university. It was 91, and President Nelson Mandela was released, and we were debating a new constitution in our law classes, and there's a new Labor Relations Act coming out. So I studied at Wits, and it was really tough for me to get articles. I didn't have a network, you know, coming from Durban, but spent some time at the Center for Applied Legal Studies, doing some NGO work, and then finally got to do my articles. And you can't really choose. So I went into a firm that did personal injury law and found that I was really good at it. I must tell all the lawyers out there, I failed delete A and B. So I was a very good personal injury lawyer. And it's so, because, you know, practice kind of takes, it's like a river. You just go with the flow, with the current. But eventually you get to a point in practice where an opportunity just presents itself to you, and really maybe that's one thing you can take about my legal career is seize opportunities and be willing to adapt. And an opportunity was presented in 2011 that said, oh, we have this thing called pro bono. Nobody understands what it is, and it's non-billable. And I said, yeah, why not? Let me take a shot at it. And I really have had the best time since then, being a pro bono human rights lawyer. Really reached the most amazing people, met the most amazing people. So that's really my journey to this point in time.
Wow, that's quite a story, Candice, and I think it probably resonates with many women on this call and women in South Africa as well, who've taken the journey from small towns, from non-privileged backgrounds, and ended up in places where society doesn't expect us to land. And that's part of the motivation behind this series, is to give women an inspiration. But can you just tell us a little bit also? I know you said that you had teachers who encouraged you and told you to shoot for the stars. But were there any people in particular, teachers or relatives, friends, who really were specific inspirations for you as you started on your journey to pursue a law degree?
Not so much to pursue a law degree, but really to do better than them in life. I had two really amazing grandmothers on both my mom and my dad's side, and they were very different. One was a traditional granny in the house, housewife. She was always cooking. She was always food in the house, and very traditional in a Hindu family. And the other one was working and had been divorced and making her own way, very entrepreneurial and standing on her own 2 feet. And they really inspired me to not be afraid to be different. Even my traditional granny, when I started school, she used to speak Tamil. For those who are not Indian, it's one of the Indian dialects. And so she spoke Tamil all the time. And when I started class 1, she stopped speaking Tamil, and she would read my readers with me at Bad Cat. And she said she will learn English. And so she started speaking English, which is terrible because I don't speak Tamil anymore. But what was great about that is that they embraced new things, and they inspired me to want more for myself. And I would throw my mom in there as well, because they're really strong women. They're not strong women where they were like rough and tough. My mom was very ill, but strong in the sense of wanting more for her children. And I'm the eldest of 4 daughters. We have no brothers. So for her, it was very important that her daughters would go out and make something of their lives. They wouldn't be dependent on their husbands or men. And she would say, you got to study, you got to finish school, you got to go to university, you must get your driver's license, you must drive a car, you must do that. So aside from just having that, the positive words and energy being put into my life really from the beginning, and having a good foundation from my grands and my mom, and really strong women in my family wanting me to succeed and do more than what maybe I even thought I was capable of doing. I'm inspired by a lot of things. I have a great faith. I was listening to Bella last week. I was thinking, oh God, how do I introduce this topic? I have a great faith, and my faith comes from just knowing that God goes before me, and He's created me for this amazing purpose in life. And my skill as a lawyer is really to fulfill that purpose. I don't have to go and preach the gospel, but as a lawyer, I can stand there and help someone with my legal knowledge. And so I'm really inspired by that, by the word of God, and by people, women in the Bible who also defied their times. I don't think my dad was too thrilled about me doing law, but he gave in, I suppose, and I've been supported that way. I've met amazing people along my journey who just said, you can do it, my girl. If anyone can do it, you can do it. And I was the first one, I suppose, on my dad's side to actually become a lawyer. And I have cousins who've now gone and qualified and have become lawyers, and lots of cousins on my mom's side who are lawyers as well. And I'd like to think that I'm a part of a whole ecosystem of people who, whether they told me, wished me well or not, or just watched from a distance and said, I hope Candice makes it. I'm backing her. So inspiration wise, I can say that, I'm inspired by everything. I read a Facebook post and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I listen to someone's story and I'm like, oh my God, you did that, and where you came from to here. So really, people inspire me all the time. I was inspired when I met Teresa Yates. I was like, wow, she's an amazing person.
Thank you.
Because
You've
I
obviously
get-
served on, Candice, you've obviously served with Teresa. You were on the board at
I never did. I
Port.
never
Oh,
did. I never did. I met her for the first
Yes.
time, and
Oh,
for you
really?
as well. I saw your name and I thought, Siva Gengan must be a gentleman. Then I met you. I was like, oh wow, LegalWise has a female CEO. You go, girl. I think really that's where I come from. I love women succeeding, and I love hearing women's stories, and I love it when people walk into my office and they tell me some amazing thing they've done or a case they've won, and that inspires me every day, because I love the law, and I love it when people love the law, and it inspires me to continue to be a lawyer, I suppose.
What about the law particularly inspires you, Candice? What is it that excites you about it?
When we were, it's about creating, I know this is a strange answer. When we were in law school, we were told that the law is a very jealous mistress, not because of your clients. You don't work for your clients. You don't work for your company. It's because you create something. You create this legal argument. It comes out of your head, and you say, this is how I'm going to argue this case, and this is how I'm going to put the evidence together. That file, you actually work for that file because you created something, and that creation is someone popped in passion, is really that passion that you have, because every day every problem has a different solution, and if you're like me, you want to help people, then every problem, you don't see it as their problem, you just see it as an opportunity to fix that problem or to find a solution. So you take from all different areas of the law. I was talking to someone yesterday and I was compartmentalizing. I said, this is an estates query, and that is a family law custody issue, and that is something else, and that is, and I was like explaining to them where the solution lies in all the different aspects of law, and it just gave me so much joy to know the answer, So I think that's where it comes from. That's why I enjoy doing it.
Thanks so much for that. Candice, I studied law in the US, and we were told the same thing. The law is a jealous mistress. And it really was to encourage us, or to warn us really, that when you enter into the legal profession, if you are passionate about it, if you're committed to making a change, then it's going to consume a lot of your time and a lot of your life. And at times when you don't want it to, you're going to have to drop everything to attend to some legal issue or some legal matter. And I think that commitment is so important in women. And I love your story about being inspired by anybody and everyone. You just find inspiration in women succeeding. And so I think it's important that we be cheerleaders for ourselves. So thank you for that. Thanks so much. And Siva, I think
you
Siva has the
mentioned,
next.
thanks, Teresa. Candice, you actually mentioned that your grandmothers and your mother was a source of inspiration. So often, we look for inspiration out there, but it's, I think, really important to recognize that we start with how we rear and treat our children. Do you agree with that?
No, 100%. I mean, most of the women in my family never even finished school. They didn't even finish primary school, some of them. So it was never about their education. I mean, I've gotten educated myself only because I have such a hunger to learn and know things, and I Google all the time. But I think that it's really important to instill even in our children, the basics of wanting more, of making them realize how much more they could access. I'm raising a boy, and so I often have to speak to him about things that are difficult, just open his mind about traveling and working and studying overseas, opening his mind about relationships, and just saying to them, don't be limited by what society says you can do, or your culture says you can do, or your friends say you can do. Try doing something brave and new, and be courageous, and you'll surprise yourself at the potential, of the human being to achieve so much more.
Thanks. And Candice, I know you said you entered into the pro bono space, a space where there are not billable hours, in an environment where billable hours and making money really drive that part of the profession often. So can you just tell us a bit about some of the highlights and challenges on your journey through this pro bono practice? Because I know that sometimes people look at pro bono work and even sometimes social justice work, and sometimes people think it's not as hard or as challenging as private practice. Sometimes people think we don't work as hard as the attorneys who make big money and drive big cars, because we don't make big money and most of us don't drive big fancy cars. So can you just share with us, some of the highlights and challenges in your journey through your selection of this phase of your career?
No, thank you so much, Teresa, for that question. I've been dying for you to ask that question. I encourage women to be vulnerable. Guys, don't put up a facade. Nobody cares. You be vulnerable and be emotional and speak the truth. Taking on pro bono at the time was just something that saved me in where I was in my personal life, and I needed it. And I always say pro bono saved me. And when I went into it, I decided to focus on women and children. And what was great about it was that we had a chairman at the time that had a vision to do pro bono. It wasn't just the Law Society directive. He believed that pro bono was the way of the future, the public interest litigation that was going to catapult a commercial law firm into a space that they couldn't get access to before, which is in the corporate citizenship space. And so I'm speaking the language, not the NGO language, the corporate law firm language. So they believed that they could use it as a wonderful marketing tool. When he sold the idea to me, he believed that he needed the right person to do it, and thought that as a corporate commercial lawyer, but as someone in practice and knowing how to run budgets and having structures and strategy and all of that, but at the same time having compassion for people and just liking people. I'd mentored extensively by then and always taking up everyone's problems to management. Believed that I had the right constitution for it. So in corporate, you have to understand your mandate. And I knew that what I was doing, first and foremost, was to serve the firm's best interest, is to position the firm in a space that it was a good corporate citizen. But that didn't mean that I couldn't also enjoy my work and be passionate about it. And I was blessed to have successive chairpersons of the firm that I've been in who supported me and believed in what I did. It helped that we won lots of awards as well. So every time someone said, but Candice is not writing fees and pro bono is costing us money and blah, 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 I'd just go and win an award, and then we'd be all over social media and we'd be trending, and that really helped. But it's extremely difficult to be a pro bono lawyer in a commercial law firm because you have nothing to judge yourself by. When everyone else is saying, I wrote X amount of fees and I've brought in 10 new clients and I've exceeded my budget, you sit there and say, well, I got like 20 domestic violence protection orders and I helped this land claims, and it's not the same. So you have to be very skillful when you're working in a corporate law firm about how you sell the story of corporate citizenship and how you position it as a business case at the end of the day, or the impact as a business case. And we've really gone out to profile the firm in that way. So they've been somewhat pleased at it. But at the same time, I'm not the highest paid person in the law firm. You're not going to be the person that's on a career path projection. And in many cases, like I said, I'm being completely vulnerable here, you really have taken a lateral step in your career. What's nice for me is that I was already, at partner level when I decided to do it. And because, like I said, where I was, I needed a change. I needed to step out of the rat race. I couldn't do it anymore. And this just really opened up my heart and opened up my mind to embracing something so new. So whereas writing fees really made me feel good for a time, and I was jumping through all the hoops in corporate, I found a lot of peace, and I found a lot of fulfillment doing pro bono work. And when I started working with the Teddy Bear Clinic at the time, just, you pick up a child and you just give the child a hug because they are a victim of sexual violence, and they're still smiling at you. They're so resilient, but your heart's breaking, and you just realize that, my God, they need lawyers, they need legal people to be fighting for them. You need to become an advocate for justice. So professionally, yes, we can always look at the fact that pro bono lawyers don't get paid a lot. Your salary is not market related no matter where you go. You have to find the thing that makes you get up and come to work every day. And I'm glad that I like people, and I like most of my clients. And you'll get that one who'll call you all the time. But the thing is, I love the work that I'm doing now. I love the work I did before, but there's a different kind of reward. Someone bursts out crying when you're standing with them, and they've just been divorced, and that relief that flows out of them, and you just say, okay, well, I'm happy, and she's happy, and we're all happy, and we go away. We're not getting paid, but it's just see that happiness that someone finally got it, or they've got their protection order. We're doing land claims, and people get their title deed, and they're crying, and the whole community is crying. And then there's just such joy when people realize their rights, because there's a huge gap between our rights and actually what happens in practice. So for me, yes, maybe I'd like to have a fancy car and live in a big mansion, but I think that God gives you what you need in life, and I think pro bono has been what I've needed, and it's been good for me, and I think I've been good for pro bono as well. So that I think has been very good. And I think what's been fantastic, Teresa, and I'll stop now, is that I had this wonderful idea or purpose placed in my heart, because I really want to tell you about my entrepreneurship practice, to help women. And I worked a lot with women in the shelters, and that really made me upset because they kept coming back. And it's like, why can't you just not come back? Why can't you not get beaten up by your husband? And it's difficult for me. And I had that moment when I realized I'm empowered. I have my own car, I have my own job, I have my own house. These women don't have that. And that's really where the idea started, about teaching women about how to start businesses and how to do business plans and everything. And I realized there's such a gap in the market, and I have opportunity. They don't have opportunity. I could go and do an MBA and learn about business, and they don't even have like 5 rand to take a taxi somewhere or buy a loaf of bread. And so I thought, well, why not? Got all these things available to me. Let me go and do that, and let me start teaching people how to start business, especially women. And that's what I do now. That's what I love. I teach women how to start businesses, and I provide legal services and do shareholders agreement and be empowerment deals, and it makes me happy. I still haven't gotten paid, but I'm hoping soon it will happen.
Well, that's really fantastic.
Yeah. Candice, if I may ask a question here, why is it that the profession sees pro bono work as such a grudge contribution? Why is it? I mean, how does one expect to, the law is always about empowerment. How does one expect to take access to justice to other communities that we operate in? If we view as a profession the pro bono work that comes to us as such a grudge?
Well, because the water and lights accounts still need to be paid. So at the end of the day, we work in big law firms. There are cost structures, and we have to pay the bills. And so if you're not contributing to paying the bills, you're a cost center. And so you have to contribute in another way. And I don't think everybody grudges that, but there are people who got into this profession, and there might be some in our audience that were sold that the deal of you wear the suit and you carry the bag and you earn the millions. And then when the financials come out and they say, oh, well, pro bono, that's the allocation to pro bono. It's like, but that's less profit. There's less profit share. There's less money. I can't go on that overseas holiday. again, because, that's what it comes to. And I don't think people are really mean. I think that in many cases, they don't actually know the reality out there. They don't know how people are suffering. Um, I find that I've taken candidate attorneys to townships that they've never seen before in their life. So the average South African does not know how the other average South African lives and copes and works. You all live in your own bubble, and even a rich person will say I'm middle class because they're middle class to their standards, but there are really poor people out there. And the minute you go out and you realize, oh, there's no one else, it's just me, it's my responsibility. And trying to bring that into big law firms or to any law firm and showing them the face of poverty, people don't want to see that. They'd rather look away. And in big firms, yes, there is a commitment to it, and I don't want to put them down, because if there wasn't a commitment, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't just spend the last 9 years growing this practice. And all the other big firms that work with probono.org and community legal advice officers, there wouldn't be such a need. And these firms are supporting community legal advice officers. They're supporting probono.org, and they're putting resources behind very big cases. For example, our case with informal traders, a small firm would never have been able to put those kind of resources to take the matter all the way to the Constitutional Court. So we do have to give props to them at the end of the day, because they do provide an opportunity for us to do big litigation. But we have to understand at the end of the day, everything costs. The light, the air conditioner, pen, it costs money. And if you're a non-fee generating department, you are the cost center in the firm. And so there may be the perception, like Teresa says, is that all we do is collect Easter eggs during Easter and do Christmas hampers during Christmas, and and I don't know, all the good citizenship stuff, but they forget we actually do legal work and we fight cases and we are in court all the time.
Yeah, thanks for that. And obviously, if there weren't attorneys in private practice who had a commitment to pro bono, probono.org wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. So our entitled model relies on the goodwill of attorneys, the commitment of attorneys to give something back. And I think, as Candice said, not everybody will be willing to do it, but as long as we have a critical mass of attorneys who recognize the importance of the work, then that's an achievement in and of itself. Because I always say that if we can't provide legal services, ordinary legal services to ordinary people, then you have people, a vast majority of people in the country, who don't believe that the law works for them. And that's when you get into trouble as a young democracy. If people don't feel as if, that the law doesn't deliver, the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution are not there for them, they're only there for the rich and powerful, then you don't get people who are committed to nation building, to be committed to active citizenry, to making everybody's lives livable and better. So we really appreciate the commitment of Candice in particular. You certainly are one of the top attorneys in our group, and it's so important. I can't say it enough times. So thank you for that. And also, I think you talked a little bit about like being the first one in your family to earn a law degree, and how you've seen other people in your family go on, to also study law. And to me, that's so important to. You live your life, sometimes you don't even realize you're a living example and a living inspiration to other people. But sometimes we need to be purposeful with regards to our mentoring and inspiring other women. And can you just speak a little bit to the importance, as you see it, for women to lift other women up?
No, I'm 100% in favor of women supporting women. And for me, in every aspect of our lives, whether it's in my family, I speak these words of encouragement to my nieces and to any woman that comes within my sphere of influence. And then I mentor the girls and boys in our law firm, but I mentor people from LinkedIn and from practice and other organizations. And it's just, I always say you can't change the whole world, but you can change something. You can influence something within your circle of friends. And so I actively find opportunities, and I look for opportunities to actually say something positive to someone that they would take, and it would allow them to grow. And especially in practice, I'm a huge proponent of women sponsoring other women, not just mentoring. Mentoring is great, you teach someone how to do a letter and everything, but sponsoring other women lawyers in a way that is going to allow them to go further in life. And I've mentioned before that there are a lot of people that have gone on that I have mentored, as candidate attorneys and associates, who've gone on and done more than I could ever do. And I think this was so important for me, because I understood my own limitations. Like, I would never be able to get in that team or go there. I know maybe I'm not the right color or whatever it is. But it was important that the woman that I was mentoring, she had that opportunity. I could see that she would be able to get into that team, do that work, get that promotion. And it's really and I encourage all women lawyers, is to really sometimes, see the big picture. It doesn't matter. Everybody's grabbing for themselves. But sometimes you've got to actually say to yourself, this opportunity is not for me, it's for her. Let me make sure she gets it. And, sponsorship is so important, because I often would say, I'm in a meeting and there's a group of influencers there, and I would say, actually, who would be very good for this? So-and-so would be very good for this, because I worked with her and I'd give an example, and suddenly this person is a person of interest in that group. And I think not many women don't do that. They don't say that. Maybe they're too afraid to push another woman forward because it might be seen as favoritism or nepotism. But I'm not afraid anymore. I just say to myself, you know what? Women helping women is the only way we can actually really succeed. It's great to have men helping women. It's great to have those kind of, gatekeepers who say, I'm going to take a woman under my wing and groom her. But there are women who have now gotten into positions of influence. And this is where I believe that we can do the most. We don't have to mentor someone for a year, 2 years, 3 years. We just have to say, I believe that person can do it. Give her a chance. And I read everybody's CV and I said, they've got a cum laude degree, or they did very well in the subject, or they worked with so-and-so, and I dropped these little jewels of information about them. Or I chat to the people themselves, and what would you like to do? Which team would you like to go in? And then next time I'm having lunch with the director, I'll say, who would be very good for your team? It would be so-and-so. So for me, that is so important. I feel it inside me. I feel like if somebody did not say, Candice would be very good for this, nobody would even have considered me. So I'm grateful to the person who whispered in the ear of the chairman some years ago that said, Candice would be good for this job, and I got it. And so I would promote any woman. I have promoted useless women as well, because ladies and colleagues, there are useless women out there as well. Not all of us are empowered, but that's where the mentorship comes in, when you actually have to have a word and say, listen, being given an opportunity, don't mess it up. Come and bring me all your letters. Let me check everything that your partner is going to be very, I know your partner, they're going to check all this, send it to me first, and you got to help them along and get there, because we didn't all start off on the same footing. And we've got to realize that it's from our school environment, from a home environment. Some people will understand where I come from. In my culture, you don't have an opinion, and it's very hard to be opinionated and to say something. People just look at you and it's like, why is your daughter talking? But you have to get past it, and you have to allow women to have a voice and encourage them to have a voice and to be heard. And I do that with even the other partners. I would say to like a junior partner, I say, this is what you must do. Just go up to the chairman and go, hey, John, how are you doing today? And then walk away. He'll just say, and he'll walk away. And then he'll remember you. So I just think it's important when you're in and you're there, and that you don't have to be the most popular person. You got to share the information that you've gained and that you learn with the juniors coming up, and you got to like open the doorway, open the gates, and allow them in.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Siva?
Candice, what do you think makes a good lawyer? What are the qualities?
Well, it depends what you want to achieve by being a lawyer.
We're trying to unpack the useless lawyer story.
Yeah, the thing is, you don't get into this profession because you want to be, well, Kim Kardashian is doing a law degree, but you don't want to be a Kim Kardashian.
Well, listen,
you don't have a law degree.
Yeah, so if Kim Kardashian can secure the release of one woman via Trump, I'm all for Kim Kardashian studying law.
It's hard work. I don't know if she can do hard work. It's hard work. You've got to really, you've got to study and you've got to know the law. And when I talk about useless lawyers, it's people who just arrive, and it's equally male and female, and just think they're just going to look nice in a suit. You have to know the law, guys. You've got to read your textbooks, and you've got to read, if you want to be a litigator, the uniform rules of court. I can't stress that enough. Go and read the rules of court. You've got to have compassion. You've got to have compassion for your client. Even if you're a commercial lawyer, you've got to understand that your client came to you and has a need and has a desire. And very often, commercial lawyers work with the junior legal advisors in big corporates, and if there's any corporates there, you'd know that's a person on the other end of the line, and that person's gonna get into some trouble if you don't do your work. So when I speak to a lawyer, I say to them, guys, if you didn't send your agreement, your client contact is waiting for it, is developing an impression. That actually is your future client. So treat your client well. Understand that he has or she has pressures as well. And having compassion for your clients in pro bono work really, really helps so much, because you don't start off from judging them. You don't start off by saying, like, oh God, another domestic violence protection order. You actually sit and you listen and you hear the story of pain, and you know that, okay, the person has walked a journey and you so want to help them, and sometimes they can't see that taking the step forward is going to help them, and you're going to have to just walk with them, along that journey. And really, being a good lawyer means you got to love the law. You can't Google everything. You gotta have a love for the law itself. You gotta read the Constitution. You gotta read legislation. And I meet technical lawyers who, they don't like people, but they love the way the law works and the rights that it creates, and how the regulations get put together to, do things. And I will look at those people. They're so strange, the administrative lawyers. And yet the passion for developing the law in a way that actually promotes the rule of law gets them so excited. And for me, that gets me excited, because I know that, Teresa talks about a very strong democracy. I know when we have people like that, we're strengthening our democracy, because we may be worrying about the family law and the domestic violence and the human rights violations, but there are other people who are really excited about the development of the jurisprudence of this country. So I would say, yes, passion for the law, and read everything, and compassion for your clients, and just understanding that there's a person on the other side of that instruction, and you'd have to be a human being with compassion to that person.
Absolutely. So I'm going to leave Teresa to ask the last question, but I would like to prompt our attendees to say that in a short while after Teresa's last question, we are going to take some questions from you. So if you've not posed your questions yet into the chat box, we please ask you to do so. And just remember, when you're doing so, to send it to all panelists and attendees so everybody could view it. So Teresa, to you to ask the last question. This time has really gone, guys.
Thanks, Candice. Yes, the hour, the 45 minutes goes by so quickly. So just as a final question, we just want to ask you to reflect a little bit on gender stereotyping in the law in particular. And why, in your opinion, do you think that those adjectives that are generally attached to women, such as being nurturing and sensitive and innocent, are looked down upon, particularly in the law, and men are described as with adjectives such as, you know, aggressive and competitive, you know, go-getters, and if women are described in those terms, it's seen as a negative thing.
Yes.
And I know you spoke a bit, and I really appreciated earlier in your comments that you spoke about, you know, being able for all of us, not just women, but for men as well, to recognize our vulnerabilities and to be able to articulate what those are. But so often when women do that, we're seen as being too emotional and not being cut out for, particularly for the legal profession. So can you just kind of reflect on and comment on how best we can promote a more accepting and gender neutral profession and society?
Thanks, Teresa. You know, like I said, I'm a huge proponent of just being myself. And I mean, you're over 40, you just kind of speak your mind and nobody cares anymore, or you don't care what you say. And I think that when I started off early in the profession, it became very important to set the right tone. And you don't want to be seen as emotional or sensitive or all of that. And then and the reality is, when you become more established as a lawyer, you then can be who you really are. When it comes to gender stereotypes, it's a narrative that we have lived through. You know, it's in a male-dominated world. For me, it is a way to exert power, or, you know, the domination over you. So my advice to people have always been is own that sensitivity. If somebody says you're sensitive, you're sensitive. Tell them, my feelings are hurt because you said that. And you know, I've always been feminine. I always wear a dress and stockings, and you know, we came from the old school that said we had to wear dress and stockings to work. And I've continued being that for 21 years. And what I've tried to show my partners and my juniors and my colleagues, the incredible strength of being me, feminine, and yes, sensitive, and being intelligent, you know, and strategic at the same time. I have a lot of female colleagues who wear pants all the time. Yes, it's great to wear pants all the time. If you have a figure for it, go for it, you know, but you don't have to be masculine. But if you want to be masculine, by all means, you be masculine. For me, it's holding people accountable when they start the narrative. It's not about the choices we make. If I choose to wear a dress, I choose to wear. If I choose to start crying in the middle of a board meeting, so be it. Somebody better bring me tissues. But the thing is, it's about holding people accountable when they say stupid things like, you know, Candice is too sensitive. And I said to them, I am sensitive. Your wife is sensitive. Your daughters are sensitive. You know, just deal with it. It's not my problem. It's your problem if you can't deal with me. Because I think very often we want to hide behind the facade, and we all do it, ladies. I mean, if I even have to tell you that my world is falling, crashing down around me, you know, as we speak, it's awful. But we smile, and we talk to people, and we give them hope, and we say everything's going to be all right, because we are nurturers, and that is our role, and we must just embrace it. And if someone has a problem with who you are, then you're actually being dishonest to yourself. You know, if I'm having a tough day, I manage everybody else, and I tell them, I'm having a tough day. Can you just leave me alone so I can get through it by myself and not upset all of you while I'm having my tough day. And so I think people have appreciated that. And I even have the guys in my team will just sort of like wave past, can we come in now, whatever. And they've come to realize there can be incredible strength. And women are incredibly strong emotionally. We may not be incredibly strong physically, but trust me, when the walls are crumbling, women are standing together and they're pulling together and they are motivating people and they're getting things done, and they say, you do this and you do that and you carry this, and we're very good organizers. So for me, when someone comes with an attitude that tries to gender stereotype me, I embrace who I am. And if I couldn't be vulnerable for many years in my life. I had the rough and tough exterior that I knew what I was doing. I'm Miss Attorney. I got it all. And then one day I had to actually say to myself, no, this is not working for me. People will understand. Even this week's client phoned. I said to the client, yes, on Monday I'll get it done. I didn't get it done. There was a death in my family and I had to deal with that. And then by Wednesday, I phoned the client and I said, I should have been honest with you. Somebody died in my family. I had to deal with that. And I'm sorry, I didn't come back to you on Monday, but I should have been honest. And my client said, yes, I understand. And I think we are too afraid to do that. And if we have to look at it from a business point of view, it really is about, you can call it time management, you can call it people management, whatever it is. If you don't want to be vulnerable and say to them, this is what's going on in my personal life, that's fine. But you can tell them, listen, I'll call you on Tuesday. How's that? Can I come back to you on Tuesday? I'm just busy with something right now. I'll call you back on Tuesday, or I'll do this. And you just manage expectations of everyone around you. But when it comes to people who refuse to embrace that the world is diverse, I found that straight talk is very important. And I call out my partners when they are racist, when they are sexist, when they are just asses. I just tell them, that's it. Guys, I'm an intelligent human being. I have a law degree. I have an MBA. And I can't deal with you guys. Talk to me and my devil. So
no, without a doubt, Candice. I kind of get that. But I think it's so true, you know, that although there's all this gender stereotyping around, I think the one thing that everybody appreciates is authenticity, you know, of person, of thought. So I think that's particularly important. I see one of the questions has come through for you, Candice. It's from Siva in Google, who asks, with COVID-19 hitting SA hard, the informal trading space has grown significantly. What contribution can we make towards this issue to make sure we bring a lasting solution for South Africa?
You know, what's been hardest with the informal sector is that they were not part of any of the relief payments made by government. And you know what? I'm going to hold the government accountable for that. Shame on them. Because our informal traders, whether you're a home industry, whether you're a mechanic, whether you're selling tomatoes and potatoes on the side of the road, you know, government ignored the informal sector during COVID-19. But for me, the impact of entrepreneurship is to take the power, the economic power, and put it in the hands of the person. Is to say to them, no longer be beholden to a grant or a welfare or a handout or whatever it is. The market is open. You seize the market. If you want to bootleg illegal alcohol and cigarettes, you can't even do it now. Go ahead and do it, because you know what? At the end of the day, that's money in your pocket. That's paying school fees. That's buying groceries. That's buying electricity. And that's the only way we can actually grow and to make that lasting impact and change is to really create markets and opportunities for people in the informal sector to actually be able to sell and to earn a revenue. And that's fine if they don't pay income tax. I'm fine with that. But I'm just saying that to create that really strong informal sector, it's a really strong economic base. You know, it's a really strong, and maybe what we can do is teach people just maybe the really simple lesson of you know, supply and demand. That's it. Let's go tell someone, hey, I got a good idea. Why don't you sell this? Or my company is looking for A, B, and C. Why don't you go and see if you can't source it, and I'll have a word with our procurement and we'll buy from you. You know, that's I think the best thing ever. I've often gone to our company and I said, you know what, why don't you buy food from the lady selling on the street? Her pup and steak is better than what we're eating here. And we've done that. We put it on our intranet, and So I think that's how we can really, as women lawyers or women in corporate, is really, when we are in an organization, is to bring in the informal sector, or bring in someone who's got an informal business. And I like them to stay in the informal sector because there's less regulation there. And I'm happy to support them until government decides that they want to actually create the informal, leave the informal sector as they are and not have them register their businesses and do A, B, and C. I'm quite happy to really create a very healthy informal sector, even through the home-based businesses. So I think there's lots of unemployed women out there that can really take this to another level.
Absolutely. I mean, many households survive purely on the informal trade and the remuneration that's engendered there.
I'm going to university because of that.
Oh, well, there you have it. Yeah, absolutely. Teresa, I'm going to leave the final question to pose with Candice. We're almost out of time, but we will ask the final question.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Candice, for that. And we just want to thank you for your courage and strength through the process. And you've certainly given us a lot of things to think about. I don't have a final question for you. I think the last question was the final one. And there's so much, I don't want to start another discussion because it will take us beyond the 1 o'clock time frame that we've set off. But we do want to thank you, and we want to thank you. We want to apologize. There are a couple of questions. Someone asked what they can do with their law degree while they're waiting to get articles from a law firm. I just want to say to that young woman that you can contact probono.org if you're interested in getting a position. From time to time. We have openings for interns, and they are generally young people who are waiting to get articles. So if we have funding and space, then you'll get a year with probono.org and get some experience, which often helps people get their articles. We also accept applications for volunteers, where we just give a small stipend to help cover for transport and lunch. So you can also contact us if you're interested in coming and working in our Johannesburg or one of our other offices as a volunteer. So that's just a little promotional pitch in the last minute.
I'm sending that bill out to you, Teresa.
Okay. So Candice, thank you so much for the inspirational words and for sharing your journey with us and with our panelists. And I hope that people who have been here today will find strength and inspiration from your story, and people will get ideas around how they can use the law and how they can make a real contribution in South Africa. So thank you. Over to Siva.
Thank you very much for selecting me and for having me. I've really enjoyed this. And if I can just leave one quick comment, I really believe that in the Bible it says perhaps a woman for a time such as these is the story of Esther. And I want to speak to women especially. Don't be disheartened. Happy Women's Month. You celebrate yourself, but don't be disheartened with COVID-19 and what's been going on. Perhaps you were born for such a time as this, and find ways to influence, find ways to help. Whether it's just cooking a meal for someone or giving a beggar an apple or just talking to someone who really needed a pep talk that day. We really need women and their strength, your strength, for this time, because it's been incredibly hard. So I wish you all the very best. Enjoy the rest of August. It's almost over. But yeah, I'm praying for every one of you, and that will come out of COVID-19 stronger and better with more money, hopefully.
Thank you so much, Candice. It was a very inspiring afternoon with both you and Teresa and all our attendees. Thank you so much, Candice. So I'll leave you with a final call to action. And our question, as always, to all of you out there is, what is your story of courage and strength? And how are you continuing the legacy of the women of 1956? Or finding ways of narrating your stories and making your voices heard? So thank you all today for joining us, and I will hand you back now to Abongile.
Candice, it is such an honor for you to have shared your story with us. By sharing your story through Our Stories Matter, you have surely inspired, motivated, and encouraged us. Thank you everyone who joined us for today's webinar. Please remember to join us for the next webinar on the 28th of August, 2020, when we will be in conversation with the passionate Professor Elsa B. Skuman, Dean of the Faculty of Law at the University of Pretoria. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day further.
From my side, we hope you all enjoyed today's dialogue. Please don't forget to complete the brief survey before you log off. Goodbye, everyone, and have a lovely weekend.